Good morning, everyone. I just realized I have the Qatar image, by the way, so I should probably get rid of that. But good morning, American Scouser. Morning Coffee Show is here. It's Wednesday, so apart from getting me, you get to get our very own Egyptian king, Rami, over here. Rami, what's going on, man?
Good on Tamuchin. Happy to be here on another beautiful Wednesday morning.
I don't know about beautiful. It's
Well,
freezing outside.
it's pretty
Uh,
cold, yeah, but still.
but yeah, at least we're up and alive. Barely up and barely alive, but still.
Yeah.
So a couple of topics to get to. So obviously the biggest talking point is going to be our the whole like January transfer deadline. Obviously yesterday was the last day. I don't know if it was as chaotic as I usually see it. Like a lot of like last second things and stuff, which we'll talk about that, like a last second fiasco with Ziyech and stuff like that. But overall, when you look at like the January, first of all, let me ask you this: how much stock or value do you put into January transfer windows or January transfers as a whole? Let's say.
Generally speaking, like in a normal season, I don't put a ton of weight on it just because these are the type of deals that happen in January, usually like last minute. Like you saw with us a couple years ago where you got Quebec and Davies. Those are I feel like the type of deals that usually happen in January because a lot of teams don't want to part with their best players. But I think with the World Cup happening in the middle of the season this year, it was a bit of more hectic and frantic. You just had a ton of players moving and a ton of players who like weren't really on the global spotlight until after the World Cup. So yeah, this January transfer window kind of worked as that like post World Cup transfer window, which is always crazy. And so it was a bit crazier than I expected, to be honest. Mainly, Chelsea specifically, but yeah, it was kind of expected to see that you're gonna have a lot of players moving around.
Yeah, that World Cup ordeal usually, you're right, because it's, you get a couple of, James Rodriguez, and I think now Enzo. So we'll talk
And
about that.
yeah,
But I think you get a couple of guys that was not as big before, and then the World Cup hits, and suddenly they're like, oh my God. And then, a lot of money is spent, and they were like, oh my God, that was just a tournament kind of a deal. So I think it's like part of that deal, but I just wonder. I think if you're getting somebody like Bayern going out and getting the goalie, like, okay, that's fine. Like you're getting a need that's like a big need. I just feel like some of these moves, and like let's talk about the article right here that I had on the screen. Let's go back to it. Like this is something that, obviously ESPN loves to do, but who won the transfer window and who's the biggest loser kind of thing. It kind of like, they do the day after the draft, like who's the biggest winner and stuff. And this is the kind of shit that, kind of like the draft over here in the NFL and NBA and stuff. You really don't know that shit until a couple of years later because you go back and you're like, actually, they had a really shitty draft and stuff. But
right.
I mean, is it fair that because January transfers usually gets a lot of more flack because they're like, they never pan out and stuff, except this guy, maybe that guy and stuff. We point out, but is that because in January there's like 2, 3 moves? So if one of them happens to be like effective, is that about the same percentage as a summer transfer window where you sign 7, 8 guys and maybe 3 of them pan out? So does January gets criticism unfairly, I guess, let's say?
Yeah, I guess you could say that, especially when you look at it like the players they have to sign and then go adjust to their team. There's not like a preseason training. And then, like I said, most of the time they're already in the middle of the season. So you could be joining a team like in the title race or a top four race or a relegation battle or whatever. And so, yeah, it's kind of hard. I feel like it'd be hard for a lot of players just to, or you might even be learning a new language for certain players, stuff like that. So, yeah, I do think there's a bit of unfair criticism, or maybe lofty expectations, probably a better word, on January transfer windows. And like you said, it might be the same percentage of hits and misses, but because there's a smaller number, it just seems a bit more distinct.
Because I think, yeah, there's like the spotlight on these 2 guys that just
Hmm.
joined. So if they don't pan out, they're like, see, January never works and stuff. Whereas, over a summer, you might bring like 6, 7 guys in. So obviously, there's more like a wide spotlight looking at everybody. But so, of course, right after I smashed the whole concept of winners or losers, let me ask you, who do you think won the? No, I mean, who do you think, like, out of all the moves that made, are there any that you were like, see, now that is a good move that you would say?
Um, Despite the money they paid for him, I think Chelsea securing Enzo especially on like an 8.5 year contract. I think that's, I would love him at Liverpool. I think he's going to be a world class player. I was even saying in the Discord yesterday, like as much as I like him as a player, I kind of hope he flops because if he succeeds with Chelsea, then he's going to pay that back that price tag almost instantly. So yeah, I think it was really good bit of business. If not them, I think United. When Ericsson went down on injury, once they found out the extent of his injury, they went and got Sabitzer on loan. I think that's I think that's I think that was a little bit of professional business from them. I think Sabitzer is a good player. He didn't play much with Bayern this year, but when he was with Leipzig last year, and to get him on loan, not really without a fee, I think that was a good bit of business from them. So yeah, us signing Gakpo, I know we're all kind of hoping for a midfielder, but I thought that was a good bit of business too for the price we got him. So
Yeah.
There's a few like outside of Chelsea, of course, but there's a few teams that quietly did business that was really effective.
Yeah, I know. I mean, a lot of teams, except Everton. So I'm going to ask you that as well. I mean, I think Kazi had posted something in our Discord chat, which we put the invite for it last week, by the way. So if you go to our page, you can click on that link. It's still active to be able to join the fan channel. But I mean, all the teams in the relegation zone spent some money, maybe not big money or big names, but those are usually moves that kind of pan out a lot more too, like $7 million signing here, $12 million signing there, trying to kind of like bring in people to take them to the next step. And then, I mean, we talked about it, I think in the last show, saying where we like when they sold Gordon at Everton, we were like, okay, like maybe they could have gotten more, but they got enough funds to give to Sean Dyche in terms of like, being able to bring a couple of people in. Are you shocked that that money just stayed in their pocket at the end and they really did not get anybody in? Because they're the only team that actually made money in January, whereas all these other teams kept. I mean, Forest is just Forest. I think finally they actually brought in some smart moves, but everybody kind of like tried to reinforce the squad as opposed to Everton just reinforcing the wallet.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like you said, Forest brought in Keylor Navas. Wolves has like signed 2 or 3 midfielders, stuff like that. So the teams around them have strengthened. But part of transfers is the player you're signing has to want to be there. And we saw it with Danjuma, had his medicals and everything. Then last second decided, no, I don't want to go there. And then I think they tried to sign Conor Gallagher with that money that they got for Anthony Gordon, and he said no as well. So as much as we could be like, yeah, they probably should have spent that money and strengthened. If you're a player looking at their situation, I don't know, that doesn't seem like that attractive of an option at this point. I would be like, if my option was Everton or wait till summer, I'd honestly just wait till the summer and just see what my options are then, because like you said, there's just a lack of stability there. You might not want to play for Sean Dyche, like play his playing style. And then on top of that, you might be in the championship next season, despite all of that. So yeah, I just don't think they're that attractive of a prospect. So even if they wanted to spend that money, I think it would have been difficult for them to find quality if they wanted to.
Yeah, they were really going after, I mean, that's what they need, right? They can't score goals, so they were going after strikers. I know in Turkey, I mean, the rumors were really big that, they were after Batshuayi from Fenerbahce. And Batshuayi was pretty much like, thanks, but no thanks. And he was like, I'd rather stay here in the Turkish league than go to Everton in the Premier League. Because I think in the long run, you don't know how long you're going to be there. For one, I mean, in terms of the Premier League, and a player like Batshuayi, I probably will have other takers in the summer transfer window throughout Europe. So, and not to mention, he's chasing a title right now as opposed to fighting relegation. And I think that's a good point you brought up. Do you think a lot of strikers will look at how they're going to end up playing under Sean and say, fuck that? Because, I mean, it is the style he plays and usually uses like one big dude up top who really is like, it's like a thankless gig to be that striker because you're pretty much alone. You're trying to do a hold up play and stuff like that, but it can't be fun for a striker to be playing that role unless you really love the physical aspect of it.
Yeah, 100%. And like I said, it's not for everybody, especially, I hate to sound like an old man, but especially in this generation, that's not.
Yeah, if you look like an old man, and I'm in trouble here.
But that's yeah, you just don't see it as much. That's kind of like an outdated play style. And so yeah, for a lot of these younger players, it's kind of a foreign concept to them. So yeah, I 100% agree. I think the play style of a manager is always a big contributor to transfers. You've seen players do all the time snub one team for another because they prefer that manager. So I think that's part of it. You'll struggle to sign a striker when you're telling him you're going to come in and your role is just to be back to the goal basically for 90
Yeah,
minutes. So
yeah.
so yeah, I think that's a difficult sell for a lot of players.
Yeah, that's why Batshuayi was like. I mean, there were like two, three names. I just know Batshuayi obviously a lot more because of like him being in Fenerbahce. But Sparky says they'll use Duncan Ferguson again. They might have to. I just don't. Yeah, it's kind of like an odd ordeal. And if I was an Everton fan, I know like Sparky has a bunch in the family. Are they just going crazy, upset right now, saying what the hell? Because I mean, think of our own fan base, right? Going kind of nuts. And I wanted to ask you that too, actually, because I feel oddly very indifferent that we did not do anything at deadline. I think the Gakpo transfer is forgotten, I think, because we did the business early. Like, it's like we didn't do anything in January. We did bring Gakpo, which was it a need? I think maybe it was based on, we don't know when Diaz is going to be back and obviously Jota, Bobby being out and stuff. So it was a need to bring in a striker. I know everybody wanted a midfielder. Obviously, we all do. But, I'm almost like very indifferent that we didn't go out and do like a last second ditch guy that Klopp is probably not going to play, a Kabaka Davies, somebody like that, it's like, do we? I mean, I'd rather just wait in the summer and spend the money and get somebody that will be fine. Unless you already had people in mind that you were going to play like 7 million, 12 million and stuff to bring in. Clearly, we did not. I highly doubt that was like a money thing. But first off, like, how did you feel about the whole ordeal in terms of like Liverpool not signing? Are you annoyed, indifferent, happy, sad?
Yeah, I'd say I'm annoyed, slightly annoyed, because I'm not as I think for a lot of people's frustrations comes from, oh, why do we sign Gakpo, not a midfielder, or like both, which I understand. But around towards that maybe after the World Cup and stuff, I was kind of under the impression that we weren't going to sign anybody. So for us to get at least Gakpo was a positive for me. But yeah, I think my frustration is more with like the summer transfer window. I think that's when we should have gotten our business done. Um, right now, like we talked about earlier, it's just hard to find a player who's gonna, I guess, save your season or whatever you want to say. Because first of all, it's a lot of on that. Let's just say we signed Caicedo from Brighton for however like $80 million or whatever. He has to come in and basically save our season in 6 months, and that's just a lot of pressure to put on a young player. And so I kind of understand the club's position about why they didn't want to spend that money. But like you said, I'm sure there's the next Enzo Fernandez at River Plate or Boca Juniors or something like that, where you could have gone maybe taken a risk on a $10 million player, and he could have been not the one to save your season, but part of the rebuild. Just start being proactive on that. That's more of where my frustration lies. But like I said, I didn't really have a ton of expectations going into it. So the fact that we at least got Gakpo is a positive in my eyes.
Yeah, Sparky says we need a lone midfielder. I agree. But here's the thing: if that guy was going to be another Arthur, what does that do?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I just feel like instead of getting something just to get something, like you're at the restaurant, you're not really hungry, but I'll have something. Like, just don't fucking order anything, dude. Just drink your drink and chill. And I think I'd rather do that than get somebody. And I think like the type of player that we're talking about, maybe somebody that's going to be big potentially down the road, is I don't know if that's for the January transfer window, because you want somebody in January that's going to come in and make an impact. But I would have loved to see, for example, somebody like that signed and loaned right back and say, "We'll see you in summer," kind of a deal. I mean, heck, the Turkish season is not even over. I mean, Fenerbahce did a couple of those moves where they were like, you know what, young right back, sign him, but you can stay there, kid, because we got the season squared away. But next year, we're probably going to sell this guy, so you'll be coming in, kind of a deal. I would like to see some of those things. But Saida says, my eyes full of tears. I just not that bad, man. Clubs are second problem of FSG for their poor financing. Club stubbornness in both team selection and formation lead to ramifications. No top seven for us. Sense accumulation, defeat in both legs by Madrid. And Sparky says lack of ambition, and Trevor, as he's watering his plants, probably is saying proactive is not a word in our club's vocabulary. I don't know. I think really, and I talked about this on the Monday podcast as well. I really think we just need something more up top to cover this midfield a little bit. I think we are starting to harp way too much on the midfield because it's been like the line to go by. And I'm not, debating and arguing the fact that yeah, we could have used a midfielder who's fresh and who can run maybe like a dude like Enzo, but I would not want to spend that much money on Enzo. I guess that's where I'm at. If we did that, I think there was talk in the Discord channel yesterday, like, oh, if he did that move, we would be really happy. I don't think so. I really did not watch any game this World Cup in Argentina. And I might have said, first of all, I thought he was more of a douche than anything else. But aside from that, I mean, I never really watched a game and left the game thinking, man, that dude is so good. We gotta get him. Did you really watch that Argentina team and be like, that kid's gotta be the star?
Right. He was never the main guy. You're right. It was just always like Julian Alvarez, for example. I thought he was more of like, obviously he was already a Man City or whatever, but he was kind of like the guy that for me was like the breakout star of that Argentina team. So yeah, I think you watch him and you're like, yeah, there's definitely a player there. But for him to be 10 million just this past summer transfer window and then now be 120 million for me just seems a bit exorbitant. So yeah, I'm 100% agree. And I want to point out something that you said that's, we always say, oh, it's the midfield and it's an aging squad and all of these things. But I mean, like you said, I don't know even if we sign Bellingham tomorrow, I don't know if he solves any of our issues. You know what I mean? Our issues are kind of deep rooted. Somebody mentioned it. Klopp's stubbornness can be blamed. You can attribute it to lack of funding. You contribute to a ton of injuries. You can attribute to anything specifically, but I just feel like it's a bit reductive to be like, oh, if we sign one or two midfielders, we're going to go back to what we were. I think, there's still a lot that needs to be done, and it remains to be seen if we do that, if those things get done in the summer. But as of right now, yeah, I think just if we said even alone, I doubt a lone midfielder solves most of our problems.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, yeah, it would be another pair of legs, like Saida says. It would be somebody to help ease the burden on Thiago. Hard tackles here and there. That's what Milner is for, to go come out and do the hard tackles and get the yellow. Like Ruben Neves is like a good name, for example. I do like that. I mean, somebody like that would have definitely helped. I don't think we can argue that. I just, I think you look at some of the moves and I feel like it's like way over the top spending. And like you're saying, I don't know if one person is going to be able to change that team. Having said that, when we brought Diaz in, it really re-energized that, that entire side, the entire team. He kind of cared. I mean, if we're missing somebody dearly right now, more than midfield, we were talking about this on the Monday podcast with Gally. Like if he could bring one guy back who is in form to help this team, like if you picked one guy and he's magically the peak of his form, and we talked about Diaz and Bobby. We did not pick a midfielder and say, oh, if Fabinho was in top form, if Henderson was in top form, because I really think if our attacking force was more efficient and productive and put a bit more of a scare, that helps the midfield, which helps the defense and everything like that. And not to mention the confidence factor. I think, when you're winning, teams don't go shit overnight or they become great overnight. I know these guys are all pros and stuff. It's a lot about, confidence. Like winning breeds more winning. And sadly, losing and struggling breeds more losing and struggling. Sparky Farky says, can we fast forward to July? This season is done. I don't know. I'm still have like a little bit of hope. There's a lot of leadership on this team. But yeah, I don't expect suddenly to be like, oh, they're back or anything like that. Maybe in March and that's a big if like Diaz, Jota, Bobby are back and we're kind of like kicking in all gears up top. But and I know it's the Liverpool way. By the time that happens, another 2-3 guys will be out. So now we'll be like, well, those guys come back in April and stuff like that. So that's the problem. So let's talk about the Ziyech ordeal. So he's supposed to be loaned out to PSG. And then they're like, the paperwork is in the mail or something. I guess, Chelsea claim a computer glitch was the blame. I don't understand how this crap works. I mean, we're talking about like organizations worth billions in dollars, right?
Right.
We set up, we use StreamYard for our broadcasting over here. There are times where we, I have to set people up to be able to have access and stuff. I mean, it's pretty freaking easy. where you say, "Hey, I just did it. Did you get an email?" And then the guy says, "No, I didn't." Well, let me do it again then. And then, yes, I did now. Okay, we're set. How can a billion-dollar freaking organization that has so many people, like we've seen this shit before, like, oh, the fax machine got stuck and shit.
Yeah.
Like, how does it even freaking happen? Or is it like you think it's on purpose? They're like, you know what, fuck ZH, and then they'll like put it in the junk folder or something like that.
Yeah. No, it's funny to me. As much as I love the transfer window and all the rumors and stuff, one of my favorite parts is like the last few hours, like leading up to the end, and then like right after, where you kind of discover what billionaires don't know how to use a PDF or whatever. Like, like it just it's just very simple, technology things. But yeah, you're right. You bring up David De Gea a couple years ago and the fax machine, or even us last year. We couldn't get Carvalho's deal over the line because like the paperwork, like in January wasn't completed or whatever. So yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe it was intentional from Chelsea. It kind of feels that way. They sent the wrong paperwork 3 different times and all that kind of stuff, and it just felt a little like playing dirty. But I don't know. Who knows with these situations? It could have just been incompetence, like we said, just not knowing. Like it went to spam and they just had no idea or whatever. But I thought it was interesting.
Emails are going to the spam folder.
Yeah, spam folder. Yeah, they put a spam link in there just to, just to
Chelsea keeps there. Asking for different players. They're like, you know what, man, just mark it as spam. Like we don't. Want
seriously.
And now it's coming back to haunt him, maybe. I mean, here's the thing though. Like, if it is intentional, even if it is not, what do you think of like a guy like ZH, a guy like Caicedo? How would they go back and play now? And what can you expect out of a guy like that who, I mean, Caicedo posted saying like, thanks everybody, like he's leaving. And then, ZH is probably like in his mind, he's eating, like he's thinking, oh, which cafe will I go to when I first land and stuff in Paris? And now he's like, it's like, I guess I'm going to have some coffee in London instead. So, I mean, how do you expect, do you expect these guys to perform well afterwards? Or will they like shake it off in a month and all will be forgotten?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like ZH, for example, I was reading, he was at PSG's office, just like trying to help them out. He said he'd even pay for his own transfer.
Getting refreshed.
Yeah, he's on Fabrizio Romano's Twitter page. But yeah, you're 100% right. Like he's the type of player who's trying to force his way out. You bring up Caicedo. There's been a few this window. Just Trossard was another one. Just that you kind of like. I mean, Trossard transferred, but players like him, where it's how do you go back and face your coaches and your teammates after throwing a fit, basically. These guys are professionals and they're paid to do a job. So I'm sure, like you said, after a couple of weeks, everything's going to be forgotten. But if I was his team, I'd still kind of have that in the back of my mind. Like Adam Lallana came out and said, I can't remember if it was the Caicedo one or the Trossard situation. Yeah, but he was just like, that's like we'll be fine without him, basically. And so if you hear that kind of stuff, it would make you kind of feel like, okay, maybe I'm not doing the right thing here. Like if you're the player that's holding out, maybe I'm not doing the right thing. So yeah, I like I said, they're professionals at the end of the day, but they also are humans. So I would feel a little bit betrayed if my teammate did something like that.
I wonder, like, because like they understand the situation. Like, I don't know, like, are they going to ZH today and be like, man, you really got fucked on that deal, kind of a deal? And like, don't worry about it. Let's go to practice. Or, I mean, Caicedo, I think, was a bit more of a, hey, it's a good opportunity for me. Looks like it's a done deal. Thanks, everybody. I think it's a bit easier when the club tries to like keep you because they value you so much. Mm-hmm. Or maybe they're asking for too much money, whatever the case might be. But either way, they value you so much that they want to keep you. As opposed to, I think it's almost worse when the club puts you up for sale and nobody gives what they want. They're like, I guess we'll keep him then. And that, I think, is probably worse. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see like how much of, I mean, Caicedo probably we will definitely see a lot of because it's in Brighton's interest to have him more out there too if they do want to move him in the summer. Because they might be going to him and say, hey, man, summer, we need you this year. In summer, your replacement's already here, blah, blah, blah. And then, we'll make the deal. These guys will pay what we want and all that kind of stuff. The ZH thing is just, like, we didn't want you, but, you know how computers be and stuff. I just find it like deal like really odd overall. So, but I'm just happy that the deadline is over. Good or bad, at least we can kind of like move forward. Some deals, like I say, I just hate saying like, oh, that was. I mean, I see all the time, all over the place. Oh, that's a great move for them. That's a great. Not all these moves can be a great move. And
Right.
you gotta kind of like give it some time. Yeah, we look at it on paper and say, yeah, they should be able to use them, but it's kind of odd. I think it's harder to walk into a room in January or now in February, I guess, and suddenly be an impact. Um, I think moves within the Premier League are going to be more successful than people coming from outside because adjusting to a club, adjusting to a new league, adjusting to a new system is almost too much sometimes, especially for some of these younger players, as opposed to you're already used to the country and the league and stuff. You just a different system, different teammates that most of these guys know each other from national team and stuff like that anyway. But let's talk about this over here because this is your thing all over. Club World Cup is starting, people. I'm assuming since we're not in it, nobody knows about it because really, I think unless your team is in it, it's not really viewed as something very valuable. Yeah, I understand the concept and all that kind of good stuff, but I think, and as the Egyptian king yourself, I think it means a lot more for those teams. I remember like back in the day when we had to pick, the Brazilian players had gone to Klopp and said, "Hey, this is a huge deal for us because we've been talking about this and dreaming of this since we were kids." Whereas I doubt anybody like I doubt Robertson was like, I hope we can win Club World Cup. So, but your team is in it, right? Now, right?
Yeah. Yeah, my local team in Egypt, yeah, this one, Al Ahly. We
Rock jersey.
yeah, I got my jersey and everything. Yeah, we're in it this year. Been in it. We were the bronze medalists last 2 seasons. We've won the bronze medal 3 times. So for an
There's
African
actually
club,
a bronze medal. Like
what's that? Yeah,
there's actually a bronze medal. Okay, I just didn't know. Okay,
yeah. It's like the bronze medal, like the third place game, like in the World Cup.
okay.
Yeah, so for a team, a club from Africa, that's a huge deal. We're the only African team to get any medal, and so like you talked about, Liverpool was in it in 2019, and for me personally, I was so excited just to watch all of Liverpool's games, and then I kind of saw the reaction from like the general fan base. I was like, oh, who cares? And
Like Sparky
so
Parky saying, "What a waste of time."
yeah, see, see, a lot of people just generally fans of European teams don't care. Like I'm sure Real Madrid fans who are in it this year don't even like. Yeah, they'll want to win it just to have that superiority or whatever, or have an extra trophy, but they don't care. But you look at, for example, Seattle Sounders. They're in it they're the first American team to ever be there, so there's a lot of support for them. Like you talk about the Brazilian teams, Flamengo is in it. Their fans, they want to win it. They feel like they can win it. So it's more of a pride thing for these teams from smaller continents. Australia has a team in it. There's a Moroccan team in it. So these smaller countries or smaller teams, smaller clubs, this is their moment on the global stage. They're very rarely, like 2 seasons ago, El Ahly, my team, played Bayern Munich. That type of game would never happen in our history without something like that where we can be on the global stage. We only lost 2-0, but we put up a good performance and made people proud. So it's just the type of thing that it means different things to different people. I totally understand why some people don't care. It's kind of like a glorified friendly at the end of the day. But for for small clubs, it's just like this is a once in a lifetime opportunity essentially. So that's why I kind of like tune in, and if I have a team like Liverpool or El Ahly is in it, I kind of just tune in, see what's going on. But I'm not gonna plan my whole day around it or anything like that.
Oh,
So
so
yeah,
you're not even okay. So you watch
yeah,
obviously your boys, but you're not gonna watch. I don't know, like Al Hilal take that wide ad so that
no,
the
no,
next round kind of thing. Sparky says
yeah,
English third tier league better than most of those teams. Third is a push, and most is a push. I think. I mean, obviously, like Brazilian team, the team that represents South America is usually a pretty solid team and very physical team. That a lot of like rash tackle. That's what was my biggest fear when we were going there because I feel like those teams play a different brand of soccer that can be really rough. But I think it's a lot more interesting or appeal to a country, like your guys, like Al Ali, is that the
yeah,
team? Or they're playing like Auckland City and stuff like that. Like I can see that being more of a huge deal because it's a rare opportunity for you to kind of gauge yourself against another like big team and stuff like that you watch on TV in the big leagues. You're like, one day I want to play those guys, kind of a thing. So I can kind of see that. Yeah, I think unless your club is in it, it's one of those tournaments that you're like, it is what it is, kind of a deal. But yeah, you brought it up that it was going on, so I figured like we'll like share that news over here. So here's like another interesting one right here. You actually sent this to me, and I just want to talk about a couple of minutes. And if nobody has watched it, this is something that you gotta kind of like YouTube and like watch just to hear the sound. I think that's like the biggest thing right here. So this is actually a game in Brazil. So the Brazilian league gave a ban, and this is something you actually sent it to me as like the headline, partially saying like this is the first time it's happened, and I debunked that theory immediately. A game attended by just women and kids, which actually for the first time it happened was in 2011. You said, is that right?
Yeah.
For a Fenerbahce game, and the reason was, I mean, these usually it only happens in countries where the crowd gets out of control very easily, like Turkey and Brazil and stuff, where like the bands were basically playing without fans, which hurts the clubs even more, and the atmosphere, obviously. And so they came up with this for like 1 week in Turkey. I guess this was for like 3 games in Brazil, where they let women and children attend the game, but not men, because we're the ones who cause trouble, clearly. But I mean, first of all, what did you think of it when you first saw it? I know I had to tell you. I mean, obviously, I would know about the Fenerbahce one either because I'm a Fenerbahce guy. But what did you think of it when you first saw it?
I thought it was so interesting. I thought, like we talked about it before the show, like just the sound, the atmosphere was incredible. It was very electric still, and but like it's a completely different sound. Like they're singing the songs and stuff like that, and it sounds completely different. It's a completely different like energy too. But yeah, I don't know why more teams haven't done that in the past. Instead of just playing in front of an empty stadium, at least maybe make some of that money back, and you still have an atmosphere, you still have dedicated fans, and yeah, so it's just interesting to see. I just think we as a male football supporter, I just think we need to do a better job of creating, a safer space for women and children to be able to support and go to games and stuff like that, and not treat it like a novelty thing that, oh, look, they're cheering on their team. Yeah. So yeah, I think we just need to do a better job in society, I guess, but especially as a football fan, to just, make it a more welcoming space.
Yeah, I mean, if you have time, I'll throw the thing too. But I mean, like Fenerbahce had at the time here, actually, I'll throw it in there. Obviously, don't click it right now because you will get to leave this fine broadcast and go there. But yeah, I mean, if you check out the link, it's just the sound that is so weird. And I think one thing that shows me is how big of a thing soccer is in these cultures, because not a lot of stadiums you can fill in a lot of countries. And even if you filled it, because I don't think you would get this passion and the chanting and stuff. I mean, it was just like a regular game, except the sound a lot more high pitched than what we're like used to. So it's, yeah, when you sent me this, I think it's always like interesting to see that. But I know, like I say, they did that in Turkey, and it was kind of like a novelty thing. It was like everybody was really impressed. We're like, yeah, but we don't want this all the time. So they ended up changing it, because instead of hurting the clubs financially, who are already hurting, they just kind of like did it where this corner of the stadium is not going to have any fans, or you guys are going to be fined this much instead, but you get to keep the gates at least to kind of like offset that and stuff like that. But yeah, if you get a chance, click on that link, or I'm assuming there's videos out there too. I just know like these videos were out there because I've sent it to other people in the past that the conversation came up on. So Rami, I'm not going to get to talk to you obviously until after the weekend. Let's real quick get your take on what you expect to see from the boys this weekend as the Premier League comes back.
Wolves, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's a winnable game. I think it'll look similar to the FA Cup game that we beat them in. It just might be like a little bit tense, but I started to see some glimpses in the Brighton FA Cup game, despite the loss. We started to look a little bit more solid. We created a ton of chances, just couldn't finish. So hopefully, we finish some of those chances and come away with a clean sheet. So I'll say hopefully we get a 2-0 against Wolves.
2-0. I'll take that. I mean, I expect to win as well. I think, you see some slight improvements. I mean, ideally, if Nunes can start, I mean, if we have like a more of a proper front three, I think we get some goals against a team that has trouble scoring goals. Not against us, apparently, we saw in the cup, but overall, I guess they have trouble scoring goals, and hopefully we get a win. And I'm sure the boys will be back tomorrow night. I'm sure they'll talk a lot about all these like transfer stuff, the whole FSG club, who gets more of a bigger slice of the pie when the fault lies down and stuff like that we talked about in the past. I'm sure they'll talk about that as well. Jamie and Trevor is going to be joining Mecca. Sparky says 2-1. We always concede first goal. Sadly, that's kind of like what I'm expecting to 2-1, 3-1, but sadly we concede the first goal. Just the fact that we kind of like, that's not even a projection at this point. That's like, okay, we know that, but that one
an assumption.
Kind of like a scary thought. But yeah, the boys will be back Thursday night, and with the fantasy show right after it with Mateusz and Gally. If you're still doing fantasy, are you a fantasy Premier League?
I am, but I gave up a long time ago.
Yes, join the club. Yes, we're in the club there. I might still have Cancelo starting. I hope his points in Germany count towards this over here. Otherwise, I have no chance. Because I have not changed that lineup in a month or so. I think yes, already threw in the flag. But if you have not, and if you're like into it, as a lot of people are, some great advice from those two right there who are really freaking into it. So we'll see you guys then. I'll be back Friday morning with probably Michael, and then we'll probably talk a lot more about the Wolves game then as well. Have a great Wednesday, everybody. See you guys. Take care.